Omar Gilbert from Gracia. This is the Rorschach, Georgia update from the 23rd of January, 2025. Quick summary of what's going down in Georgia. On Tuesday, the 21st, the European Parliament discussed the political situation in Georgia. Most European lawmakers criticized the Georgian dream, the Kotsebi, for its anti-European stance and the crackdown on protesters. Magnus Brunner, the EU's Home Affairs Commissioner, raised alarm about Georgia's democratic decline, condemning violence and political persecution. He called for the release of people who were unlawfully detained and suggested new parliamentary elections to rebuild trust in Georgia's democracy. Many MEPs supported these points, while some criticized the EU for not acting more decisively, calling for stronger sanctions. However, a few MPs defended Georgia's sovereignty. Those who bring up sovereignty are the ones comfortable with Georgia being a colony, ironically. They accused, no laughing, the EU of interfering too much. The European Parliament will vote on a new resolution about Georgia in February. Next up, on Sunday the 19th, President Zourabishvili gave an interview on Fox News about the growing threats Georgia faces from Russian influence in its puppet government, Kotsebi. She called on the U.S. to pay more attention to the region, stressing Georgia's key role in stopping Russia from destabilizing the Caucasus and the Black Sea. She warned that if Georgia teams up with Russia, China, and Iran, it will hurt U.S. interests, and pointed out that Georgia has been a close partner to the U.S. for 30 years. She also raised concerns about China taking control of key Black Sea ports under the current Georgian government. Zourabishvili urged the U.S. to support the Georgian people to stand against Russia's push for dominance in the region. On Saturday the 18th, Saba Buadze, one of the leaders of the coalition Strong Georgia, or Zlieri Lelo, and his colleague Ramaz Mandiraya were attacked as they were leaving their party office. Buadze said the police did not contact him after the incident and have shown no interest in investigating the case, as the police did not even collect the knife dropped by one of the attackers. Coalition issued an official statement calling the incident a clear case of political retaliation, with the government using violence, thugs to try to intimidate its opponents. While we're on the topic of politics and crime, on Sunday the 19th, Kotsebi's president, Misha Kavelashvili, pardoned over 600 prisoners. We were all waiting for this. The Social Justice Center, or SJC, a local NGO, criticized the pardon, calling it politically motivated. They expressed concern that such an unusually large number of pardons, given out shortly after Kavelashvili assumed the position, might have been granted to reward the criminal groups that helped the Kotsebi to intimidate the opposition and win the parliamentary elections, which is exactly what happened and was the purpose of those pardons. The SJC warns that this move undermines public safety. They emphasize that such decisions could be more transparent and based on clear criteria to ensure accountability and public trust. The SJC views this as an abuse of presidential power. On Friday the 17th, Gustav Getberg, a member of the Swedish Parliament and Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, announced that the Sweden-Georgia Parliamentary Friendship Group decided to immediately suspend all contact with the Georgian Parliament. The group is against the unconstitutional appointment of the new president and calls for new elections in Georgia. On a related note, on Wednesday the 22nd, the Estonian Parliament issued a statement on Georgia condemning Russia's attempts to polarize Georgian society and interfere in the elections. The statement criticizes Georgia's October parliamentary elections as fraudulent and undemocratic. The Estonian Parliament refuses to recognize Georgia's current leadership and calls for new elections, condemned the repression of peaceful protests, and urged the EU to sanction Georgian officials involved in these actions and limit communication with Georgia's government until free elections are held. A new Human Rights Watch report highlights a decline in human rights in Georgia in 2024. It criticizes a statement from the 28th of November by Irakli Kobakhidze removing EU accession talks from the agenda and sparking protests. The report mentions many things we've covered in previous shows, such as the use of excessive force by the police, violent mobs linked to the government beating protesters, and hundreds of demonstrators being arrested and abused in custody. It also condemns a Russian-style law targeting civil organizations and journalists as foreign agents, anti-LGBT law disguised as protecting family values. It raises concerns over fraud in the October parliamentary elections in the case of Azerbaijani journalist Afgan Mukhtarli, who was refused asylum status in Georgia and will face unjust treatment if extradited back to his homeland. Last week, we reported on an attack on Gogigahari and Batumi, a major tourist city in western Georgia. The attacker was Dito Samkharadze, a member of parliament of the ruling party. A snippet of the recording was shown by the state propaganda channel Imedi, where Gacharia is seen splashing a cup of coffee on Samkharadze, who's acting aggressively towards him. However, the full recording, which would feature the physical assault of it in a separate incident in which Samkharadze acted aggressively towards a journalist, was not released. Nadia Zourabishvili, deputy chair of Gacharia's party, says that the Sheraton Hotel where the incident occurred informed them that the footage had been handed over to government investigators. Zourabishvili accused the hotel of destroying evidence, as previously had promised to retain the footage even if the investigation requested it. She also alleged that authorities coordinated with the hotel to erase evidence. On another note, on Tuesday the 21st, the Supreme Court of Russian-occupied Abkhazia sentenced Kakha Muradov to 15 years in prison on charges of treason and spying for Georgia. The prosecutor's office said he had both Abkhazian and Georgian citizenship. They released a video showing his arrest in Gagra, where he was accused of spying. During a search, they said that they had found evidence linking him to the Georgian Legion, which consists of Georgian soldiers fighting on the side of Ukraine. They also found equipment used for spying and weapons. In the video, Muradov admitted he worked for Georgia's Ministry of Internal Affairs. No idea, but probably that was coerced, and that he was keeping track of Russian military movements and sharing the info with Georgian authorities. NGO Civic Idea has recently released 2 new reports shedding light on the growing influence of China in Georgia. First examines the involvement of the Chinese state-owned China Railway Tunnel Group, or CRTG, in overseeing 2 critical infrastructure projects in Georgia: the Kvashveti-Kobe Highway and the Stepanitz-Minda-Veleti Road. The report raises concerns about security risk, infrastructure deficiencies, and CRTG's history of international rules violations. Second report highlights the Georgian government's institutions' increasing procurement of Chinese surveillance technology, reveals a rising trend from 2019 to 2024, and outlines concerns over data insecurity, cyber threats, and human rights violations. These issues have led to the banning of Chinese technology in several democratic Western countries. To read the reports, check out the links in the show notes. Closing this edition with sports, on Friday the 19th, Merab Kavelashvili took down Umar Nurmagomedov to successfully defend his UFC bantamweight championship belt for the first time. The 34-year-old Georgian fighter faced off his opponent, who fought under the Russian flag and gave dominating performance that everyone in Georgia is celebrating. Kavelashvili claimed the title in September 2024 by beating Sean O'Malley, and with this win, he now holds 19 wins, 4 losses record in MMA, extending his winning streak to 12 fights. He also handed Nurmagomedov his first ever loss, breaking his flawless 18-0 record. And that's it for this week. Thank you for joining us. Heard from some of you that you'd love to subscribe, but you don't want to spend the money. Well, great news. Subscribing to the Rorschach Georgia Update is absolutely free. That's right. Whether you listen on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon, or YouTube, hitting that subscribe button will not cost you a thing. Subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us grow and continue bringing you updates you love. So go ahead, subscribe. Need anything? Feel free to reach out to the team at info@rorschach.com. Nachamdis.